Okay. All right, everybody. Welcome to the Rick Padgett Show, and we're going to talk a little bit today. It's your not paid for by government. It's paid for by the people. United as one. And here we are. Let's talk about what's been going on lately. The process is this. We've seen a lot of successes in the midterms, and we kind of saw some flops even still today in Arizona. I don't know that it seemed like they could finally get it right. I don't know what the deal is. Florida got slapped around a couple of fools down there, so they fixed it. But it seems like Arizona, places like that, just during left field somewhere. So it's just. I'll let you introduce yourselves. Again, I'm Rick Padgett, and I'm going to turn this over here. If you gentlemen introduce yourself to. Can you hear
Who
me?
did you say you wanted to speak first? Yes, can you hear me?
Kevin? Yeah, go ahead. I can hear you.
Yes. Yeah, I'm Kevin White. I retired Air Force. I write articles. I'm also an author, and I have my own show. And thank you for coming on my show last time. I appreciate it. Would you like me to talk about this election, about Arizona specifically? The problem is Katie Hobbs is the Secretary of State in charge of elections, and she's running for the Senate at the same time. That's a conflict of interest, and she refused to recuse herself from that role. And the longer you wait, the more you count. You can change anything to anything you want it to be. You don't know. That's one of the problems with Arizona right now. And it makes them look like, third graders when you can't count first week or the first 5 days. I think election day should be election day, not election month. That's a huge problem, and so much corruption. And all of a sudden, we could have had the Senate, and look what's going on now. It's like changing. Oh, everybody's catching up. It doesn't make any sense. Nothing makes sense on this election.
No, it sure doesn't. It doesn't. And like you said, and it makes you wonder when you look at Katie Hobbs and you listen to her speak and talk. She's not said anything of any kind of intellectual conversation at all, because I've not heard her other than I'm running for governor, and Lake doesn't need to be governor because she just doesn't understand. I haven't heard anything from her other than kind of like talking points, but no explanation to what she's having to say.
But really, it doesn't matter, because first semester candidates, like they proved in Pennsylvania, the system rigged against the other candidate. Doesn't matter what they say. Mm-hmm. You got people that are completely inept. They get elected because of the voting. I can't trust the voting in this country anymore. Just my opinion.
Oh yeah, that is the problem. What do you think? What you thinking?
To everyone watching and listening, J. Antoine Minor Sr., host of J. Antoine Minor Speaks, also ran for city council here in Fayetteville, North Carolina, as well as mayor this last election cycle, which was a wonky one. But
that's a fact. I was watching, dude. I swear.
That's the nicest way I can put it. It was wonky. But when you look at, I think the question is, who thought? The question in my mind is, who really thought that the midterms would be any different from 2020? Because once you allowed them to get away with it in 2020, what is preventing them or discouraging them from doing it again in the midterms? This was anticipated. When you start seeing, the conservative or the Republican candidate is up and winning, and then all of a sudden the numbers stop coming in, and then all of a sudden the other guy or gal has now jumped ahead, or it's like within a small margin. It's like, where did all of that just come from? I mean, the truth of the matter is, the same dead people that voted in 2020 voted this year, and dead people votes matter. And so I mean, I guess that's where we are in this country. And so it's sad that we've come to a place in this country where our elections really cannot be trusted, especially on the national level and even on the state level. Which is why I try to stress to people that you have to really get involved in your local elections, because local officials have the ability to push back against tyrannical rule and attempted reign on the state and national level. Mm-hmm. But, when we look at what's going on across the country in this midterm, I mean, are we really, really that shocked and really surprised at what's going on? I think the real shocker, probably not even a shocker, but the real eyebrow raiser is like, oh my God, they're doing it again. Like, we knew they were going to do it again. Mm-hmm. And they're doing it again. And this time they're not hiding what they're doing, because they're like, well, we got away with it last time, so who's going to stop us from doing it again? Yeah.
And that's always the problem. It's like, who's watching the shop, when everybody else is doing what they're doing.
Absolutely.
Who's watching the shop? And that's, again, and then you get it. Was it Arizona or was it Nevada where the cameras got turned off and for a period of 8 hours again? And they go, oh, well, we searched the building, but they only showed the front door. They didn't show anything in the back. They showed an empty lobby in the front. Like we're all going to come rushing in the front door. Duh. Come on, folks.
Yeah.
What the heck is that?
It was the same way here as we were watching the local radio show that I'm on here. We were broadcasting live on 2 local stations, and then on our podcast, I'm with the podcast, the Carolina Cabinet, and we were watching as the votes were coming in here locally, and all night long until roughly about 10:25, it kept saying 0 precincts reporting, but the numbers kept changing. And we're saying, well, how are these numbers changing, but no precincts have reported? And then just as we got ready to go, and the crazy part was, we asked the secretary of the Cumberland County Board of Elections, why is it still showing that 0 precincts have reported? And she could not give an answer. And about 5 minutes before we were signing off the air, all of a sudden, all of the precincts went from 0 reporting to 100% reporting. And I'm saying, oh, really? Isn't that convenient?
Yeah, and when I was running for Senate in the Granville, Person, Durham area, we were watching the race all night. And we were like, okay, well, this is kind of like we're nip and tuck. At one point I was ahead. And I said, we're going to, and we're watching it. And then all of a sudden, boom, we looked and said, how did we go from being up to no precincts reporting? And I'm behind again, but no precincts are reporting. And then you hear the judge has just signed an order. There's a stay to keep the flow. They're going to be open for another hour and a half because of the line. And then my buddy
give them dead people time to vote.
I said, my buddy sent me a picture, and he goes, "There's no line here. I'm right here." Line. I'm like, that gives them time to get them ballots on in there that nobody knows about.
Oh yeah, machines breaking. It's like you guys didn't anticipate this.
No,
I mean, you had 2 years. You had 2 years to get this right, and all of a sudden, the night of,
they got it right. They did get it right. They got
Exactly.
Right.
They got it right. They tested it out in 2020 and they perfected it in 2022. So we'll see what happens in
Don't change a
2024.
thing on that one.
Exactly.
Hey, Antoine, I just want to let you know. I got to let you know, Antoine, I grew up, I was there for 3 years down in that area at Pope Air Force Base. I was a dependent down there. So I remember that area very well. So awesome. I didn't think that would go that way. You know, things have changed so much.
Yeah.
And like they did that in Texas too. They're actually counting the ballots. The people at the polls are seeing the numbers automatically go up when they know they don't have those numbers, like double the numbers of other candidates right in front of their eyes. This is amazing. You can go into vote somewhere and, oh, you're already voted. And they turn away and they use the power of the police to turn people away. That's incredible.
Yeah. And see, stuff like this will continue to happen until the people stand. I mean, we can yell at it online and we can scream at it from our pulpits, but until the people in those areas get really, really fed up. And I think we're getting ready to come to that point because what I saw was that in areas where you had conservatives that took their races and won, they did not win just because conservatives voted for them. A large number of their voting base came from people crossing over from the Democrat or independents and unaffiliated voting for conservatives, because for the last 2 years, what we have heard from Democrats, what we have heard them do is simply beat us down about the same stuff, COVID and everything racial, but they have not yet touched those kitchen table Thanksgiving dinner issues that people are facing. When you look at the fact that Thanksgiving 2022, which is my birthday, by the way, Thanksgiving 2022, people are going to have less food on their tables because you just can't afford a turkey. A 20 pack of chicken wings is $25 at the local grocery store. And people are hurting, especially people who don't get food stamps. When you see people who get large amounts of food stamps, and they're out there, they're going shopping crazy. And those of us who are paying cash and card are sitting there digging through the cart trying to figure out what deals we can save. People are frustrated. People are getting tired. People are tired. And I believe that as we move forward towards 2024, we're going to see more of that frustration start to spill over. Now, what that looks like as it spills over, I don't really know. But I do know that we're going to see people's frustrations spill over, and they're going to begin to vocalize their frustration more. And I believe that this atrocity against the republic, it's going to come to a head, and it's not going to come to the type of head that those who are perpetrating it was expecting. And I'll be very honest, and I get in trouble about this a lot because I just shoot it from the hip, and I have no gray area. This atrocity is not just being played out on the American people by Democrats. There are Republicans who are in on this as well, and we have got to root out all of it and expose all of them so that we can get back to the basics of what it is to be an American, what elections are, because the world is watching. The integrity of this country is shot at this point. But there are those out in the world who are watching, waiting, and praying for a remnant of people within this nation to rise up and say enough is enough. And I think we're coming to that place. What it looks like when it happens, it's like one of those shows where they say, I'll give you a signal. And they say, well, what's the signal? You'll know it when you see it. That's all I can say about this thing. You'll know it when you see it, and when you see it, you'll know it.
And we're not in Gotham City looking for the bat signal.
Exactly. Exactly. We're in America looking for the flag. That's what we're looking for. And the light is a little dim, but it's still shining. Right. It may not be as bright as it used to be, but it's still there.
Yeah. And the thing about it is it's like, when is enough enough? When is enough enough? When you're sitting back watching, when you're looking at states that they're still counting ballots by going 1, 2, 3, and then it says,
100.
okay, yeah. Well, how do I guarantee that Joe Schmo there isn't miscounting the box that he's putting them in? You know, well, there's 100 here and there's 100. You know, that it's kind of like the thing of when you get up in the morning and the alarm clock goes off and you need just 1 more minute, 2 more minutes, 3 more
Tell
minutes,
me about it.
5
Tell
more
me
minutes.
about it, brother.
Exactly. that count keeps doing something.
Yeah.
You know, and then you get up and you've got to run around and get in a hurry. You're like, oh man, I got to quit doing this. And then boom, dang, I'm doing it again. That's kind of the way the election is. In places like Arizona, you're thinking, what in the world are these people thinking of it? They fail completely. And then they think that we were born at night. And of course, not last night. They think we were, but, and you're sitting there watching this. And when I was with the sheriff's office, it never ceased to amaze me on election morning where we'd have to take absentee ballots that morning to the polls. We took them to the polls for whatever count. And it just never seemed to be that many ballots that we were taking to the polls. We just don't. Now it's like everybody gets mailed an absentee ballot if you want to fill it out and send it in. But here's the problem with that. I think the person that doesn't want to get out and go vote in the normal way, that don't want to prove who they are, they're making it so easy and convenient for anybody to vote. So by the time you go back and check all the votes and all the signatures, the election's over. What do you think they're calling? We're going to do a do-over. Everybody come on back. Come on back. Do-over.
Exactly.
No.
Exactly.
They know that's not going to happen. And they know that these Secretary of States or whoever it is that's going to look at it aren't going to go, we're going to have to do a do-over because Durham didn't do it right. Well, no crap, Sherlock. Durham never does it right.
Exactly.
They do it. They do it right for them. They do it right for them. Says we're going to have an election. We're going to have an election, and boy, this governor, this Republican governor, is really doing great. And all of a sudden, let's keep the polls open in Durham for another hour and a half. Oh boy, 98,000 ballots just came in that were not counted.
We forgot we found them.
They were in the back of the van.
How do you misplace 98,000 ballots, and they all come from the area that you know that are going to go heavy Democrat?
Yeah.
I mean, 98,000.
So these are not tabulated. They're not tabulated anymore. They're found. They're created. They're manufactured by the truckloads. And those drop boxes when they show up. I saw a video. They already have ballots in them when they put them down on the sidewalk. Now, who voted that one? That's like 10 days ahead of time. How is that even possible?
It takes time. It takes time for those ballots to get from the underworld back to us, and so they have a different mail system, and so you got to give time for their ballots to get into because every vote counts. I mean, literally every vote is counted.
That's right.
So in the land of opportunity, we want to make sure we're right. I got one man who wants to sign on. And he's having a hard time getting on with the link. So being that I need a new link, click on he should be able to click on the same link I sent, right?
He should be able to, correct.
Yes. He's on the iPhone. He's really having a hard time with it. I don't know why that would be. Must got to be a setting on that iPhone. I'd love to get him on here.
Yeah, so, I was trying to log in from my iPhone, and it said that the browser on the iPhone was not compatible. So I had to do what I normally do when I use this platform, which was get on my laptop. So he may have to get on a desktop or a laptop. It may just be the iPhone browser.
Okay. I'm just telling him try Google if that don't work. So I mean that's kind of like that's probably what it is. The Safari browser is the one that gives everybody such a hard time because everything's so locked in. Yeah. So for those of y'all out there listening, if you want to sign on to one of the shows, if you're using your iPhone, use your Google as the default because Safari's probably not going to let you in. And you hear that big Microsoft brothers looking in on us now. Because you're not paying for that link. It's just amazing. But anyway, so then if you look at the different races, now you take Ohio. Yes. Ohio scored a big victory. And how did Ohio do? I mean, how did that turn out for all their that setup?
Ohio is still safe. I'm proud to announce this. Ohio has not been part of that stuff we see in all these other states, the treachery. But Tim Ryan lost, thank goodness. He's been in there for 20 years, hasn't done anything. And then, J.D. Vance, not my first choice, but he's better than, I hope he's better than Mr. Ryan. Mr. Ryan is so out of touch with what's going on in Ohio, and he's for all the wrong things that conservatives are against. It's not even conservatives, there's decent people. It's not about conservatives, it's about decent people. I mean, and things that were right are wrong now. Things that are wrong are right. We don't need like sexuality in school. They're teaching these in school. And so this is one of the things I'm glad, because Ryan will go along with anything Congress puts out. And he's 100% with Biden and Pelosi. He talks a good game. He's just not the right person for us.
Right.
One good thing is that J.D. Vance was actually, he's a Marine Corps, former Marine. He was 4 years, but that doesn't really mean everything, because there's some rotten people in the military. But I have a better feeling with him, and Trump endorses him. And he actually voted for Hillary Clinton. Did you know that? J.D. Vance.
Wow.
Yeah.
Isn't that crazy?
Wow. That says a lot. Wow.
Well, politics will make people do political dumbass things. Oh shit!
Right.
That's probably the first time I used a cuss word on here. Beep, 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 beep.
You got to watch your language.
Yeah, watch your dang dumb language.
Anyway, J.D. Vance. I like the fact that he's in there, but Sherrod Brown needs to go next. So
right, Steve, can we hear you now? Are you on? Give us a voice. We're not getting your voice yet.
Can you sign language?
Check. There's got to be out there. There's. I've done this before. Turn your earpods off and look for your speaker. Go to the speakerphone. See if you can use your speakerphone. If not, you can go. Yeah, get them in there and then go to your speakerphones. Any better yet? You can hear us though, right? I can almost.
Yep, we just lost him.
He just hit the button. I can hear him. See, that's the problem with the go to the speakerphone up. Can't hear hardly. But yeah, so I was watching the race in Ohio. It never really looked like it was going to be close. So I was like, it's not going to be close. They've got it figured out there, And in North Carolina, we really zipped right up to the top. We almost ended up with a super majority.
Almost.
We almost ended up super. We were like one vote. Was it the one vote was the Senate, or it was in the House?
Yeah, and I think we really have to, consider our ways when it comes to our elections and who we're putting in office, and we really have to. I tell people all the time, we have to check the candidate before we check the box. And that's the problem. We have this tribalism that is really beginning to manifest itself politically. It's always been there, but it's been covert for a long time, but now it's more overt. And when we look at who's winning these races, and we look at who wants to go through 2 more, 4 more, 6 more, 8 more years of the foolishness. And it's really because people are not really paying attention to the candidates that they're voting for. When you look at what all this governor has put the state of North Carolina through, even with we didn't have a supermajority, we had a majority, but everything that was passed, that conservatives, Republicans passed, Cooper vetoed it. It didn't matter what it was. It was just no, and I thought that would have been something that would have really driven not just conservatives or Republicans, but really driven people with common sense to the polls to say enough is enough. But so many people that I talked to, what I realized was so many people were discouraged. They were discouraged from what took place in 2020. They were frustrated. They just knew it was going to happen again. And many people said, you know what? What's the point? I may as well stay home. And they did. And this is what happens when we stay home. You know, we end up with the results that we had, you know. And so even here in Cumberland County, it was, you know, when you look at the fact that less than 16% of the voting population, those who are registered to vote, actually went to the polls. That's what happened to the other 84% of people. They stayed home. The question is why? Because, and here's the thing, they stayed home, and it wasn't 84% of conservatives or 84%, you know, it was 84% of everybody who votes stayed home. That means people are frustrated across the board, and they've just gotten so frustrated, they're like, forget it, I don't even care. And we have to do a better job at motivating people to get to the polls and really highlighting and showing them the importance of these elections and how it really affects their. Let me tell you something. I'd rather a mean tweet than $4 a gallon for gas. I mean, that's just me. You know, tweet mean about me, talk bad about me. I don't care. But I just can't deal with these high gas. I cannot deal with $25 for a pack of chicken wings before taxes. I just mean tweet me till you can't mean tweet me anymore. I'm good. But you know, my bank account is now mean tweeting me.
Yeah, exactly.
Every time I get that notification, it's a mean tweet from my bank, and we got to do better. We really got to do better. You know, we didn't see a red. I told people, I said we didn't see a red tsunami or a red wave here in my area. We saw some red drips, you know, but I think that's because people are frustrated at this point, and we really got to do a better job at educating people on the importance of our elections, who's running, and we got to stop doing it 3 months before the elections.
I think we were one vote away from a red wave in North Carolina. If we'd have got that super majority, but I tell you, we were closer than anybody, and I think, you know, some of the battles that we fight out there, like you said, is when you look up at the makeup of the voter in North Carolina and who really goes to the polls and who talks about it, who talks a good game. Now, I had somebody the other day, and it wasn't in this state, but they were talking about the race in Pennsylvania, and with Uncle Fester of the Addams family, and he and Dr. Oz. Well, people say when they say, "Well, he didn't live in Pennsylvania." Hell, Hillary didn't live in New York and ran for senator.
That's right.
I mean, it doesn't. It's already proved that you don't have to live there. All you got to do is act like you're in that area sometime.
Exactly.
You know? And like you said, that's what you call a drip. You know. So And I'm sitting there thinking, and this person said to me, and they were like, I wouldn't vote for Oz for nothing, and because I wouldn't vote for this, and I didn't vote for so and so because this and he didn't this and all that. Oz this, Oz that. Then they send me a message and go, yeah, I did vote for Oz, but I can't tell anybody. I'm like, and that's the problem with the voter. They have no gonads. They won't stand there and toe-to-toe with their person that they believe in. So the candidate gets out there. You get a live wire candidate, and you know what I'm talking about. You stand out there and you fight. You're toe-to-toe. You fight. You say it. You put it out there. People believe it. They come on there. But when push comes to shove, they're in your corner. They'll say they support you, but when come election day, they're nowhere to be found.
Absolutely.
You know, and half of them don't even go to the polls to vote for you. But they're going to tell you they vote for you. If everybody that said they were going to vote for me the last time I ran for something, I'd be the governor right now. Because I got you. You know, and I'd have big bank pockets to run for president.
I'm telling you,
for every one person. But for every one person that tells you the truth, there's 10 people lying to you.
Yeah.
You just got to figure out who that one person is.
Exactly. Or you get the people that come up to you after the elections are over and say, "I'm going to vote for you." You're going to vote for me?
Yeah, you dumb.
Has the election happened yet? I just look at him and say, no,
way.
not yet. It's still coming.
Well,
It's still on
that's
its way.
when that's when you look at them and say, you know what? You're probably just too stupid to vote anyway.
Oh, man.
Excuse me, did I say that out loud?
No, you didn't. No.
Sometimes you just got to call it for what it is. Here's what gets me, and this is this. You have a future generation in your family, and you're 50 years old, you're 55, you're 60. I got more years behind me than I got in front of me right now.
Mm-hmm.
So I want to make sure that generation is taken care of.
Yeah.
But if I'm too dadgum lazy to do my research and learn how to vote and who to vote for and not know who I'm voting for, then I got a bigger issue. I probably should sit my ass right at home and don't even go vote.
Yeah.
Instead, they go out there and they go, hand me this paper here. Oh, give me the blue one. I'm a blue person. And they get in there and I'm a Democrat. No, you're not. You're a dumb Johnny come lately, and you're gonna swing your little lazy butt up in there because you just managed to get your ass off the couch for 5 seconds because Mama said she ain't fixing no damn breakfast. Now get your ass up and go vote. So you sneak out, you act like you vote, you turn around, you come back in with a old Subway sandwich and some kind of Slurpee from the 7-Eleven because you're going to do something different than anybody else, and then you'll come back and you're going to sit on that couch and you're going to talk about I voted for. And then when you say, well, why did you vote for somebody? And they're like, well, I just like what they talk about. What do you mean? What do they talk about? Tell me what they talk about.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody's looking at you go, nothing.
Yeah.
Because that's the way it amounts to. Because it just aggravates me. People aren't, they pretend that they're intelligent about things. Oh, I know what's going on. And they can't even tell you who the first president of the United States was.
Mm-hmm.
Or any of them.
It's amazing. Amazing.
Yeah. It's like they went right past civics class, civics 101, civics. And when you tell people the popular vote doesn't elect the president.
Mm-hmm.
It's delegates. What? No. And they'll argue about it. And they're like, well, if the popular vote, you wouldn't have to worry about getting delegates. You wouldn't have to politics for the people to go to Raleigh. You wouldn't have to worry about all these little areas to get your delegates together. And when you tell people, well, there's 50 states in California, Texas, New York, Florida, what is it? No, there's 2 or 3 more that they're big enough that if they vote together, the rest of the country don't even matter because of the delegates. And when you tell people that, they don't believe that. They don't believe it, because when I try to explain to them that the reason you have delegates is because the same things that affect people in the middle of the country don't affect people on the West Coast. And the same things the West Coast don't affect people on the East Coast. So you have to mix it up to a point that everybody gets a fair representation. Of course, it doesn't happen that way. Or we get back into the reason for that is taxation without representation.
Mm-hmm.
Because we now are going by whatever they want on the East Coast or the West Coast.
Yeah. And the sad part about that is that when you tell people that, because I've had that conversation with people and let them know that, again, the popular vote is not what elects the president. That's not how it is written in the Constitution. That's why we have the Electoral College. The Electoral College is there are delegates by each state that go, and they are the ones that actually elect the president. And what I believe happens is that people want to believe the lie because they are afraid that if the truth is really the truth, then it brings them to a harsh reality that they have been duped. And no one wants to feel like they have been duped and that they have been that they have been ignorant of a specific subject or matter. And that, I believe, is why people find it so hard to believe the truth, and rather they believe the lie. They don't want to feel like, oh wow, I didn't know. I thought I knew, but I didn't really know. and it forces them to stay in ignorance because ignorance becomes more comfortable.
Mm-hmm.
And they don't want to feel uncomfortable in this, and they don't want to feel like they don't know what they really don't know, even though they know that they don't know, but because they can pretend to know with people who really don't know, when they get around people who know that they don't know, you know.
Yeah, who's on first?
Yeah.
It's like, who's on first? I always thought if you did that, took a political satire of who's on first,
Mm-hmm.
and you applied that to politics, that's exactly how things work sometimes. They don't know who's on first, but they do know who's on first because somebody said who's on first.
Yeah.
Well, who's not on first? Who's on second? I don't
Yeah.
know. No, I know who's on third base.
Yep.
So it plays that whole thing all the way around. And that's what you end up with, and it's kind of crazy, because it's that cycle in politics that nobody really knows. All they know is that my buddy here introduced me to somebody, and this is who I'm going to vote for. This is what I'm going to do, and this is how I'm going to do it. And it's just kind of a, you got to educate yourself. And it gets back, educate yourself when you go vote, because that's the only way you can do it. The only way you can deal with it. So it makes it easier. Just to be right there. I think we lost the vote. We lose anybody?
It looks like the other two are frozen, or they've dropped off.
I don't know. Maybe come back. Hold on a second. Let's see. I'm not gonna move those. I don't know. It's kind of acting crazy tonight.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know what it is. It's kind of like 1 minute it's there and 1 minute it's not. So I'm sure we'll have them back. I'm sure we'll get them back. Somebody's coming back now. Okay, welcome back. All right. Hey, Kevin. But yeah. So I think a lot of it when it gets down to, like I said, it gets time. I think they need to do a better job in educating the youth on how important and significant your vote is. And of course, right now it'd be hard because they're swaying the vote for to even get them out of Fort. They're just swaying the vote for to even get them out of elementary school. That CD Democrat is a superhero and everybody else is bad. Reality is what was it? Yellowstone. Now, did anybody watch Yellowstone?
I didn't.
The series. Anybody see it? Have you ever seen it before? So I was watching this morning. They were talking about it. They don't get a lot of awards because they go into the real history of things. And it's not always popular to hear the real history of certain things, but at least they're given some real history. Whether you like it or not, it's real history. It's talking about things, the Indian, and how they lost their land and all the different things that go with that. It's just, it's just one of them things to where you have to pay attention to it. And then somebody says, well, they don't get a lot of awards, but they're the most watched show around. Well, that's because they go into the history of things. And look, both sides, if you're conservative or what, it doesn't matter. Some of it you don't really like watching because it's history. You're going to be, you look at it and go, dang, I don't necessarily agree with that. But at least they're giving you both spins of it.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I was watching that last night and I thought, wow. Yeah. And then they went to another thing. And then, so when I was watching another program, and we'll watch programs, and it doesn't matter whether, I believe in what that program stands for, but watching it educates me to what somebody else is thinking.
Yeah.
So I was watching Queen Sugar. Have you ever seen that?
Yeah, I've heard of it.
Well, I watched it, and it is a very, it's called Queen Sugar. It's about sugar canes down in New Orleans and sugar fields.
No, I haven't seen it. I've heard of it, but I haven't seen it.
Okay.
They got on there and they talk about the orange guy. Trump can't win, and but they're talking about real now and all this stuff that goes on. And they do the Black Lives Matter thing, and then they put the stories in about somebody gets hurt. And I'm just sitting there and I'm going, I have never seen a lawman do, act, or say certain ways. If they would, most law enforcement officers would have strung them up themselves and taken care of business, because that's not, the environment. But these things are designed to be exaggerated anyway, because it's Hollywood and they're going to do that. Am I saying bad things don't happen? Absolutely not saying that. What I'm saying is, by the time it gets to the big screen and everybody watches it, the animation of it is a lot greater and bigger than what meets the eye on certain things. It does have a good, but in the same sense, I got to give them credit. They do have a good storyline. So you can see the things, and a portion of it, you look at it and you go, yeah. But then it gets to this another point, and you think it's a little animated, over exaggerated. And then, it comes back to, well, that's Hollywood. But then when you look at the Yellowstone side, the conservative side of it, they just ignoring it. Well, we're not going to give them any awards. We're not going to give them anything. So it's just that tit for tat, but there's no tat for the tit or tit for the tat, for, well, that was X-rated as heck, wasn't it? I got to scream my own words before I say
there.
I think I give up.
Yeah.
Well, at least if I was on prime time, I'd be in trouble.
Don't worry, Facebook.
I would rather. Yeah, they will. Exactly. I would rather a two-sided lie than a lopsided truth. And if you give me, at least with the two-sided lie, I know the whole thing's a lie. But when you give me a lopsided or one-sided truth, a lot of people don't do their homework enough to decipher which is the truth and which is the lie. Right. And so they associate all, because there's a slight bit of truth, they associate it all with truth. And they then begin to accumulate the lie and populate it into the truth.
Right.
And that's where, and the media, Hollywood, they know this. So that's why they'll take a little bit of truth. They'll take a big lie and sprinkle it with elements of truth, because they know the truth. People will start, well, if that was true, then everything else must be true, when it should be the opposite. Well, just because that's true doesn't mean everything else is the truth. But because they know that people are, and I hate to say it this way, but are so intellectually lazy that, they refuse to actually dig beneath the surface. There's the scripture says, get the conclusion to the whole matter. Don't just run out and say, oh, well, they said this. Well, I was joking with my daughter the other day, and she was looking for something on Google, and I said, well, it's on Google. It must be true. It just has to be the truth. Why would they ever put a lie on Google? Nothing on Facebook is untrue. It's because it's online, it can be trusted. And my daughter looked at me with the strangest face, like, really, Dad? Even I'm smarter than that. And, and we've come to a time in our history now where, I think that show that used to come on, Are You Smarter Than a Fifth Grader? I think that was a prophetic show, because we've really come to a place now where you really have to ask people,
yes,
are you smarter than a fifth grader? Because the stuff that people are believing, and we go to the movies and we see things like Black Panther, and we see things like The Woman King and all of this stuff, and I'm sitting there saying, but do you not realize that this stuff is fictional? Oh, no, that's our history right there. Wakanda forever. No, that's not your history. It's fictional.
No,
there may be little sprinkles of some truthfulness somewhere in there to an extent, maybe not, but it's not true. And because we don't want to feel duped, and we don't want to feel like someone got over on us, we believe the lie and bash the truth, because the truth goes contrary to our intellectual narrative, and that's what we're trying to protect, is our intellectual property.
Right.
How I feel, what I think, and it's we're not. I mean, we do know our president is the guy that's over there in 1600. He's not smarter than a fifth.
Right.
Lord, no.
I mean, I just when he says things like, I got 2 words for you: made in America. And I'm sitting there saying, well, maybe he did, maybe he said 2, maybe he had the made in hyphenated together. Maybe he put that together or something. I don't know. Or he gets up and he says, I can sum up America in a few words. It's like, wait a minute, what in the world is going on? And this is what
it's
we have.
all one word now for him.
Exactly. This is what we have accepted as normal. And that brings into question.
Not me.
The mental
capacity.
Not me. But that brings it, those who consider it to be normal, and it's okay, and there's nothing wrong. I think he was on the other day, and I heard him saying something about, might have been something from the past, but he was saying that, pretty much people should trust what he says because he's still sharp, he's at the top of his game. And I'm sitting there saying, really? Like, he really? And you'd be surprised how many people are really saying, there's nothing wrong with him. He's so smart. He's so intelligent. And I'm sitting there like, it's like, if you understood that, you are a complete genius.
Yeah.
But that's what we are in this country, unfortunately.
He is a real live walking, talking bobblehead.
Huh? Yes. Ricky and you and I are both military, right?
Yep.
This is scary because you don't want your military leader like he does and to act like he does. It's very scary, and people take advantage of completely outwit you because they know. And that's the sad thing about it.
Mm-hmm. Well, China right now is eating our lunch.
He's even in there. I think after Afghanistan, he should have been pulled out.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. Malfeasance in office.
He should have been.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Classical malfeasance in office.
I was
perfect definition.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
He
dereliction of duty, all that stuff, because that's
he is mission ineffective. That is what he is. And as you said, when you look at your commander in chief, I served in the army from 1996 until I retired in 2011. Thank you both. You would not follow a commander like this into combat. You would be guaranteed not to return home. They might as well do the memorial service before you left. He is mission ineffective. And when he gets up and you hear the press secretary get on there and say that he is the biggest champion of our warriors in our history, like, are you serious? And it's like, what? Yeah, let's go, Brandon. Okay, that's what we are again. But that's and I'm sitting there looking like soldiers, sailors, Airmen, Marine, Coast Guard, and now Space Force. I don't know how to really say that. Like Space Forceans, or I don't know. But no one wants to follow this guy. You have soldiers who follow him because of how we are trained, and we are trained to follow the commander in chief. But when you listen to the conversations of service members, they are concerned. They are concerned every time there is a call for deployment somewhere, because you never know. At least with Trump, I knew that there was a line in the sand, and other nations knew not to cross that line. There is no line in the sand. As a matter of fact, there's not even any sand. It's all washed away.
Go ahead. Well, I think the best thing was when Trump was sitting next to the Chinese regime, so to speak, and they threw the missiles out there, and he looked over right there around Christmas time and said, "Yeah, we just did this, and this. Thought you needed to know." If that wasn't a message to him, after that, and then we were sitting there. We were winning the trade war. We were winning all the things that were coming to play. But now we've got a we've got a coward as a president now, and this coward is sitting in that seat, and he's making money off of being president by backing down. Don't think that he's not. He's
right.
I would venture to bet, he's probably going to be as rich as Putin is when he comes out of office. We just don't know where the money is. He's going to be the most powerful man in future politics. Yeah, exactly. But no, that's where our money
Ukraine,
is.
Ukraine. It's ridiculous. Yeah. Right.
Yeah, that's the things like that. But I think that there's going to be some sunshine, some sunlight shined on him coming up with the new house.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
I think it's their turn to be done, and I hope, and I really do hope that this time that we go in there and look for real answers and not just a puppet show to make people think they really cared. Because the last time and if I hear Lindsey Graham one more time, we got to hold people accountable. I'm going to send him a clock and say it's time.
Not me.
No, I mean that man says we're going to hold people accountable. It's time, and we're going to hold people accountable. And you know what? At the end of the day, we're going to hold people accountable. 2 years later, he goes, well, once we get back in leg and take charge, we're going to hold people accountable for what they did. I'm like, dude, if you'd have held them accountable the first time, they wouldn't be doing the same thing the second time.
Exactly. It's that
that's why they call him Flimsy Graham. Flimsy Graham. That's his name.
Yeah.
Oh, I didn't.
Flimsy Graham.
That's a good one. Flimsy Graham.
Well,
that's what they call him.
But he does. He gives the best summary, the best speech. I'm on fire. I'm going to take care of this. We're gonna and then he disappears. And you're thinking, where the hell did he go?
Right.
And he went to raise money. That's where he went to raise some money.
Yeah.
And that's what he does.
Yes.
And he, I used to like him, and I almost felt sorry for him when the president gave him his personal phone out like he did, in the campaign. I was like, dang, that really sucked. I wouldn't want everybody to have my number. I said, wait a minute. Everybody does have my number. I just not as many. So it is like, man, but again, it's like when you look in North Carolina, and I think North Carolina really had some really strong victories, and no matter what happened anywhere, the biggest victory that we had was the Supreme Court. That we finally got a Supreme Court in there that I truly believe is going to be rule of law, and finally our voter bill should get through because the Supreme U.S. and IDs and what does it matter? We use every kind of ID probably now in the state of North Carolina that you can give up there to say that you are who you are. It's not even you got to bring this, and that. It's like bring anything you got, just show who you are. College ID, sure, bring it on in. Yeah. Are you 21 yet? Oh yeah. Well, oh no, it says you're 28. Oh yeah. Well, come on in anyway. It don't really matter. But because I know what a fake ID looks like. Do you think the people at the polls going to care what a fake ID looks like? They're not going to care. Nope. They're not going to be trained to look for that. They're going to look for that ID that says, And so that was just a thing just to make certain people happy. But the reality is I like what they said this morning. When you voted over in, was it Iraq? Over there when they had their first vote or in these other places in third world countries, when they start voting, they had to put the blue ink on their thumb to show that they actually voted, so they didn't go in there and vote twice. I thought the thumb was to identify who they are on their ballot. No, they put the blue ink on the thumb to show they already voted, so they couldn't go back in there and vote twice.
Good.
I thought, oh wow,
Of
course we don't use the blue ink, but it gets back to this. So, in the day of electronics, there's going to be a day that everybody can sit home and vote from home on a computer. They're going to get on there and they're going to click, 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 click. And that's going to come. That will eventually come. And when it does, you talk about the ability to commit a fraud, then that will be unbelievable. Now, here's my thought process is, if they want to go in and make the vote go right, what do we use to identify ourselves anywhere and everywhere we go? Is our social security number, right? So if they're going to use a social security number there, why you go right in there, show and whatever the social security number is that you use it to vote by. Of course, they can give you, no name on it and a barcode. I really don't care how they do it to figure out. There's ways to do that, if they wanted to, they could figure that out. That we would just go in there and go, okay, well, boom, you go in and, and you've got your ID and it pops and identifies who you are and you go vote. Doesn't necessarily store it and put it on the ballot. Well, you would put your name on the ballot, but at least that you'd have some kind of Q identifier that says that you voted. Now somebody says, well, it's not right because they can identify that you voted for so and so and so. Well, the reality is used to be you couldn't even go on there and find out what somebody's party affiliation is. Now you can go on there if you know what their date of birth is, you know what their name is, and pop in the information. You can tell them every election they voted in. If they voted for a bond issue, if they didn't, and I mean, I think that kind of, and I understand that, but the reality is a simple one: is that everybody has the right to vote. Everybody needs to get out and vote. The constitutionality of it says, that's some serious stuff. Yet when it comes to doing that, it's treated as, oh well, yeah, it doesn't matter. Do what you want. Lolly lolly right in here. I don't care who you are. And yet everything else that they want to talk about the Constitution, they want to try to blow up and take off the map. Second Amendment. The left's been fighting the Second Amendment forever and a day. But they'll let that vote right on by. And you hear, oh yeah, it's a gun crime. What do we have? Knife crimes, gun crimes, car crimes. It's a crime committed by a person who used a specific item or something to commit a crime. It doesn't necessarily mean that we take up the guns and the cars and the knives. Oh, he was killed by a frying pan. Oh, let's collect all frying pans.
Cast iron skillets.
Iron skillet.
Yeah. Oh, we got to. Yeah, we got to. Yeah. So I mean, it's like, what are you going to do? I mean, everything they come up with something. I'm thinking, I gun crimes, gun crimes, gun crimes, gun crimes. I'm thinking, what about people crimes?
Exactly.
How about just, it's a people crime. It's a person crime. It's a mental health issue.
Yeah.
So it does. So, but we in North Carolina, when you look at it, we did pretty good. And one race I was in was, and real disappointed was with E.C. Sykes. In his race, the vote didn't turn out. It just didn't. And then here's the other thing I think we ought to have, and I don't know how we do it. I think that anytime a commercial comes on that television, and if that commercial is not right on point and is not telling the truth, whoever that commercial is not telling it like it is in point, and that candidate can show that that's the way it's done, not only should they be able to hold a person liable, but they should prevent that person from ever running for office in the state of North Carolina again. I mean, just if you think about it, because some of the things that they do say, and I won't say it on both sides, but if you had Beasley who did put a vote out there that protected child molesters from being watched and followed, that's the truth. That vote did do that. Okay, that's the truth. But when you get them on there and you infer a crime that wasn't a crime, or you infer that somebody was involved in a crime, when so-and-so, their staff committed this crime and they were close by, blah, 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 blah. They inferred it and he stood by and watched. I didn't know that person committed crime. How you can say they stood by and watched? And I'm just using that as an example. Those are the commercials that I think that need to be evaluated at the end of a cycle, not at the beginning. Let people do what they got to do, but every cycle, those commercials need to be evaluated by a neutral body of people. They look at it and say, hey, kind of a foul there. Give the candidate a warning. Over in over in the UK and places like that, they take that stuff seriously. I got a buddy over there. He's very liberal. He's part of the Liberal Party over there. And I met him when I was traveling to Memphis, Tennessee one year, and we became friends. And he said he was running for office. I looked at his campaign. He looked at mine. He goes, ooh, we would not be on the same side. I said, well, but every time we did something over here, he wanted to chime in on how bad and how foul America was because we believed in what Trump was doing. Stuff like that. Well, he talked his opinion. But like I said, I don't keep your opinion to yourself. It really don't matter if you live in another country anyway. Who cares? This is what we're doing.
Right.
Big deal. So that's me being me. But he would always jump in and have something to say about something. And finally, I was like, dude, you got no stake in over here. Why are you jumping all in this? Well, my mother lives in New York. I said, well, then let her speak for herself. We come, And he's like, well, she lives in New York and they need to be safe. And I'm like, safe in New York? That's kind of.
And I'm from New York City, and that's funny. Safe in New York, really.
I'm like, that's like an oxymoron. Safe New York, nah, because they pretended that New York was the safest place around, right? But it's not.
No, it's not.
Crime's off the charts, so it is. But it gets back to, like I said, Supreme Court now in North Carolina. They had cases pending, and we talk about education cases. The one case that said that all this money had to filter through the school systems to teach CRT because of what some I forgot was. I knew what it was this morning I was talking about it, but the court said they had to spend money into the systems to teach the children, the education all the way back to way beyond, and then come up and give them what they felt was the truth on things, to educate them, indoctrinate our children. You called the Julio something other, I believe it was. I can't remember. So for y'all out there want to criticize me, I'm telling you right now, I don't remember what it was. But it is what it is, right? Because for some reason it's just not coming to me. But I read the article on it this morning. That's going to change. That's going to change because the Supreme Court is geared to hear it now. They're geared to hear the voting districts. They're going to come back and if they do what they do by rule of law, they're going to go by what the legislature says, as long as it falls within an actual rule of law. But when a voting body decides that this is going to be a law, short of taking it to the Supreme Court of the United States, I can understand the state reviewing it, which they should, but that's a hard press to overturn any kind of law that we as voters voted for on a referendum.
Mm-hmm.
And when we voted, we should have voted for how that law was going to look. Shouldn't be saying that we need a law. It should have said, this is what the law is going to look like. We had enough at the time we could have done that, but we're too busy playing footsies on the other side, trying to look like the gentleman. In the meantime, they're trying to sneak around at night at dark, trying to blow your house up.
Yes.
Very true. Very true. Very true.
But we always are supposed, when it comes to politics, take the high road. Take the high road. That means you're just going to swing from the gallows a lot higher. You take the high road. And don't get me wrong, I think that a candidate runs for office or you're out here, you got to put sunlight on what somebody is doing if you want to get your message out. You can't sit back. You're not Muhammad Ali, and you can't rope the dope. You can't rope a dope. What you got to do is you got to get out there and you got to have offense. You can't defense won't win a game because you still have to have the offense to get the ball across the line.
Yeah.
Now they might trip up and get a fumble on the other side, but that don't always happen. You can't depend on it happening every game. You have to have offense. And so many times we get politicians to go out there and they take a pounding because they want to take the high road. In reality, I think what Trump taught us is there is no high road that's used from the left. So why are we going to travel somewhere where we're not going to see anybody?
Right.
You don't. If you're traveling the same way and you're taking a high road, you're just going up, and out. And that's what the left wants. They want you up, and out the way.
Yep.
So you have to fight. You have to go back at it.
Exactly. That's what I was just getting ready to say. We have to have those who run for office who have some fight in them. When I ran for mayor, I told them, I said, I am not from the political generation that just sat on the side and twiddles our thumbs. I am from the political generation of the clapback. If you come after me, I am going to respond. Now, I may not get down in the weeds and get all nasty. I'm not going to talk about your mama and your sisters and all of it. I'm not going to get into that. But there is a natural proclivity in me to fight back. And I had a lot of people say, "Oh, don't say that and don't hit so hard." I mean, you're in a fight. Either I'm going to hit you or you're going to hit me. Somebody's going to get knocked out, and I prefer it not be me. I remember going to a debate and I was told, "Be nice," and then I think I called the candidate out or something, and my opponent got up and said that was not very nice, and I'm sitting like, this is a debate. It's not supposed to be nice. Bring your A game. Put your boxing gloves on. I'm trying to win this thing. I'm not gonna lie on you. I'm not gonna scandalize you. I'm not gonna get into, all of. Well, do you want to comment on the fact of who he's dating? No, I don't care who he's dating. I'm looking at policy, and we have to have people who have fight in them. And I agree, there is no high road. I believe there's just a road, and either you're on that road or you're not. Where are we going? Because if we're not going in the same direction, ain't no need for us to drive in the same car. Ain't no need for us to travel the same roads. What is the desired outcome? The people, all through history, people have looked for a champion. They've looked for someone who will fight for them. And I think, and this is just me, I think that's what hurts conservatives a lot of times, is that a lot of conservative candidates don't want to fight. They want to get out and get their message out, but they don't want to ruffle any feathers. They don't want to hurt any feelings. They don't want to shine that spotlight on anything. They just want to kind of, like you said, take the high road. But we have to be willing to fight. We're in the fight for our lives in this country. And we don't have time for placating. We don't have time for pandering. We don't have time for sissy-footing around it. We got to hit this thing head on.
Yeah.
No gray area. It's black or white. We got to hit it straight on and call it like it is and not be afraid to do that. And when we do that, when we get to that place, and some of us are there, but when we all get to that place, or majority get to that place, we'll see some real results. Because we got to be willing to fight. I mean, I'm just, my military training, my childhood growing up in New York City, all of it trained me to fight back, and to, sometimes you gotta get the first punch in. Sometimes you can't wait to get hit first and then respond, because sometimes you get hit first and they knock you out. So sometimes you got to swing that first blow, and we really, because the people are looking for champions in the community, they're looking for champions in the legislature, they're looking for champions on the city council, the county commission, the school board. Our children need a champion on these school boards, because when you look at what is being perpetrated on our children in these schools, it is horrifying. I was sitting there today thinking, maybe next year, I might let my kids go back to public school, because they've been homeschooled now for 3.5 going on 4 years, and I'm like, no, not until there is a champion, not until there is someone on that school board who is going to adamantly fight for my children, because I'm not putting them in that environment, and until we get a champion that's really a champion for the people, not for special interests, not for their own interests, but a champion for the people, a champion for our children. I fear, and I hate to use that word, but I fear that we're going to continue to see a moral decline in our nation, a moral decline, in our schools and everything else, because we haven't seen a real champion show up. But I believe that there's a champion out there, and I hear people say, "Oh, there's a champion in you." There's the champion. They got the Oprah thing. You're a champion. Everybody's a champion. I believe that there are clear champions out there who.
There are, and and it's like when I ran for office. I ran for the Senate in 2018. Well, in 2015, Trump was gearing up for his run, and they were all picking him and going to him stupidly, comparing him to Hitler and all kinds of stuff, and I thought, what in the world? So, one of my downtime moments along around Twitter, I had a program, created a meme, and that meme I took, and you can Google it today, Google Ricky Padgett and Senate 22 candidate. When you look at it, I did a meme and I did a picture of Nancy Pelosi and Chuck Schumer standing together, but I transposed their heads over onto 2 German swastika uniforms, and I called them the anti-Trump unit, right? And boy, that went on Twitter. It got a lot of feed. And then it kind of went away. And then when I was running for office in 2018, it resurfaced, which, it always going to.
Yeah, of course.
I knew it was only a matter of time. And then I drew a picture of a cockroach and put Elizabeth Warren's head on it. So I was always had the tough memes. I wasn't planning on running for office. I was doing things, having fun, and and I even put my email on all those memes. So it's like, okay, so I don't care. I got all kinds of
Was it a native cockroach?
Oh,
was it a native cockroach?
If I'd have thought, I should have put some. Yeah, no, it was straight up cockroach. And I put in there, and I said, no difference. A typical.
Or was it 125th?
There you go.
Yes. Right.
And so the news.
Oh, okay. Richard Blumenthal. You guys are Army, right?
Yeah.
Richard Blumenthal. What do you guys think?
Yeah.
Just real quick. He claims to have been an Army guy in Vietnam. That's disgrace. He's still in office. I don't understand that.
Still not. I don't get it either. He should have been ran out on risk. But then you got to remember, where's he from? You know what I mean? Where is he from? I mean, you just
right. Exactly.
It's a whole lot of forgiveness that I think that don't need to go into play sometimes with people, idiots like that. And here's the, it's just like, for me, it's kind of like talking about, when you're running for office and how you're involved in it. And I was fortunate that I actually swayed some Democrats to come my way because I was talking about mental health as opposed to guns. Mental health, fix the mental health, and we'll slow that gun problem down. I never said it would quit, but would slow your issue if you think it's a gun problem. Let's work on the mental health. And I got into a pretty good debate with somebody about it, and the candidate was there, and he didn't have nothing to say, but somebody in the audience said something. I ended up debating the person in the audience, and the candidate never said a word because that was an issue he did not want to go. He wanted to pretend. He wanted to pretend that he was a Second Amendment guy, but he didn't want to say anything. So one of the ladies says, well, you're just mean. And you know what I said? I said, well, I'll tell you what. Until we need somebody in charge of the warm and fluffy department, I'm not going to worry about it. How about that? And when I said that, that was like the punchline in the room. Everybody busted out. Some listened out less. Somebody just didn't laugh at all. I was like, I'm not the lieutenant or captain in charge of the warm and fluffy department. If that's what you're looking for, I'm not your guy. He is. And I pointed to the candidate. I was like, so it was kind of like, dang. He was like, I got shot and didn't even get into the fight, So, but he actively, where I worked at before, he actively participated in an event an activity to get me terminated on my job and succeeded at it.
Wow.
And he was a sitting senator, a North Carolina senator. And he made some complaints, and he was out of his district at the time. It wasn't even his district anymore, or at all, where he was trying to do favors for some people and for the company. And because he was working on some Senate things for them, next thing I know, when I was running against him, I was called in and said they didn't like my stand on the Second Amendment. They didn't like my position on the social issues. And because of the Second Amendment, that the Human Resources Department was very intimidated by me because of my campaign and my ad on the Second Amendment. And I said, do I bring any of that to work? No. Mm-hmm. Do I talk my campaign to work? No. Then why are we having this conversation? And then what it was he was greasing the wheels, and of course he enjoyed the fact that, and Governor Cooper had a direct involvement in it too, because he had a secretary that was working on him work for this company. So this person who she worked for this company, she was working for him as his assistant, had his ear. So when he picked up the phone and complained on me, the senator complained on me, and both of them ended up, I was told from the person that both of them ended up got me. But here's the thing I say I enjoy about that. It took a senator and a governor to take me out there. That's pretty powerful. But you know what? I didn't bow down to them then. I don't bow down to them now. I didn't give up my integrity. I fought the fight. I continued on with the race, and I didn't stop, and I didn't look back. But I didn't whine and cry about it like I could, like anybody else might have. I put up a fight. I would put I put my gloves back on, and I went back in the ring. I was not going to be playing victim anywhere because that's what they want you to do. I said, no, we're going to fight this, and I'm not going to go out there and scream and yell, play victim. And that's what we do.
They violated your right.
Well, they say they did. I don't think they see your political affiliation is not protected in any state because they said it was a political affiliation. It wasn't performance based. It was based on my.
It's the Constitution. It's not
Constitution. According to North Carolina, according to the North Carolina and the Supreme Court, is that the Constitution protects your right under certain things, but it doesn't protect your right to your vote. Your vote is still protected. Your right to run for office is still protected, per se, that they're not keeping you from running. But the job does not have to participate, or they can do what they want because one, this is an at-will state, North Carolina.
Yeah, it is. Yeah,
it's an at-will state. You don't get anywhere. They can, and then they can, for if you run for a city or county office and you work for a city or county government, they can use what they call the old famous Hatch Act that they never really use until they don't like you and you're a Republican and they bring it up.
You do.
And that's designed to stop. They keep you. That's designed to get you to cease and desist any campaign, and you're going to have to because once people find out that you're being investigated under Hatch Act, they're not going to donate any money to your campaign because they don't know that you can actually run.
Yeah.
And that is designed to make that. That's what they used on me when I ran the first time for office, the Hatch Act, to keep me from raising any money. So the folks here in my area were very intimidated by me running. And every time I would run, they would go on full throttle meltdown mode. I ran for county commissioner.
Yeah,
I ran for county commissioner. It looked like I had a great chance to win. I had commissioners' endorsements. I had endorsements from a lot of people, a lot of organizations, realtor companies. I even had developer, whatever. Should have won by a landslide, but you know what they did? Instead of saying, the top 5 commissioners win, they get the race, they have managed to get a total of 15 people in the race.
Wow.
So,
wow. Okay.
You talk about somebody that they just did not want to see in any kind of office, but that was Durham politics for you. So Durham has built a political structure based on corruption. Durham, North Carolina is why you hear so much about them. If you think about it, every now and then when these elections come by, CNN and all them report, in Durham, North Carolina, the polls are going to be open. In Durham, North Carolina, blah, blah, blah. And it always seems that a judge in Durham, North Carolina is setting a standard or an example for the rest of the United States. Why? Because they have figured out how to work the system. That's the way they do it. They figure it out and they run with it. North Carolina is very unique for that. But I was glad to see that at the end of the day, in the midterms, that we had more Republicans cross the finish line than not, to get up there. And I say that because there are some Republicans that I think that don't best represent the party, nor themselves, or the people they're supposed to represent. And they stand between the left and the right. And they can't get anywhere in the left, so they stand in the right, in the shadows of the right, to try and end up somewhere. And some of them get lucky enough to get across that line. That's just the way it works. But in Ohio, I was watching you guys there, and I'm thinking, look how easy that these elections are running. They're not, and when they kept showing Ryan was ahead, and all of a sudden you seen him start falling behind because the more conservative districts started pouring in, and like you said earlier, is, he basically voted for the administration every single time, but acting like he wasn't, acting like he was just a guy, one of the good old boys sitting out there drinking the beer on the bar stool. When in reality,
that's right. Exactly.
He was a plant. He tried to make it look like that, and that's unfortunate that happens like that. But, I guess that over times and changes in politics over the years, when you see these politics and you see how they're done in the different states, like I said, it takes on a whole new meaning. When first time they said an illegitimate president. Well, does anybody really know who the first illegitimate president was? In my lifetime, if you think about it,
Yes.
it was John F. Kennedy. If you think about what happened in Chicago with all the votes that came in well after hours after the polls are closed, and they had already had the votes, ready to go, and the union and the bargaining and I always thought people said, well, Nixon was paranoid. Well, he was the victim of that whole thing too. If you go back and look at the history of that, and they want to talk about an illegitimate president, you'd have to go back and see what they did back then in the city of Chicago, when you have more votes tallied than even had people voted. I mean, it was just, and it wasn't just one or two votes; they were horrendous amount of the votes. But by the time it was over and they went back and recounted or do it, it's done.
It's happening now. So,
yeah.
Unfortunately,
so it's nothing. Yeah, it's nothing new. I mean, it's just nothing new. And people want to say, "Oh, you really believe that the election?" I believe that every election has a lot of that going on, and I think there's better ways to make sure that the elections are held accountable. I don't care what party you are, as long as you're held accountable. It's just like going to school. These teachers and how they acted through COVID, and the politics and the politics took over COVID, and the teachers took over, the unions and all. If you went in there and tried to run their testing procedures the way that we do the voting system, they would be screaming at the top of their lungs. Because it's not
totally
the standard for voting, and you can't even use. I mean, it's kind of like taking a test. If you don't get it right, you got to do it as a do-over. Well, unfortunately, you can't do over the vote. You can do the test. It just doesn't make sense, And the question would be: is how do we get there from here? And how do we get there from here?
Election day only. One day, maybe two. That's it. If you don't vote, if you can't vote in that period of time, it doesn't. It doesn't make any sense, because that's it. You're done.
Yeah. If you make people too
comfortable, can't vote ahead of time.
Yeah. I'm thinking, well, we got so many people. One day's not going to. Okay, maybe 2 days, and if you have to wait in line, that means you might need to be in line at 6 o'clock in the morning. And they ought to give you
That's what we used to do. Yeah.
State holiday. Right. State, what they call it, a voter work day, right? A voter workout day, off day, where if you can go and show that you voted, you're off.
Ohio gives 2 hours usually.
If you can't show that, that's the way. If you want a day off, go vote. I can see it now. Bring in your voter cards with your number stamp. Voted. My day was off. Everybody being there trying to get the morning hour, so they'd be running around by 9 o'clock doing what they want to do. And again, I can understand the volume of people. If you got, you got somewhere like New York, it's got how many millions of people, and they got to get them in there to vote. It just means you have more voting polls, more voting booths, you have more,
though, because Ohio, we have 12 million people, and we find out later that night or the next night even, and it's not an issue, because technology is there. We have 2 choices: you can paper ballot or electronic. So I took the paper ballot route because I don't trust electronic or whatever. But that's what they do. It's not just like everybody goes to the machines anymore. They're making it more transparent, and you can't make a mistake on the other sheet. So one day, that's all you need.
Oh, I know. Oh, yeah, and I think one day would work for me. I mean, it's one of these things that where, like I said, but again, Durham, North Carolina would figure out how to mess that up. I can tell you now. You couldn't, how many people, but the reality is, you're right. I think one day, it just, to me, it's a lot easier. And the probably because there was too many people populated and blah, 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 blah. there's ways around that.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know, but again,
every other country does it.
Yeah. But how do you think Arizona's election is going to turn out? How do you think? You think
it's going to?
We're going to get it.
They're going to find more votes, and then it's going to completely turn on them. So I think that's what's going on. I have no doubt that that's why all these delays. The more you delay, the more votes they manufacture, and then it's not fair. And Arizona is not that kind of state, I don't think. And you know, there's so many underage people that are voting, illegals that are voting, people out of state, people used to live in that state are voting.
Right.
It's ridiculous. And they're turning away people that who are legitimate voters.
Oh yeah.
And they're giving the wrong pen. The wrong pen to choose is back. This is back. Can you believe that?
Oh yeah.
Remember last time? The wrong ink?
Yeah.
They've been doing that this year too.
Yeah. And you think they would learn. You know, you think that, well, they have learned. They're learning how to do things differently and drag it out. I just don't think that, you know, the voters don't have the appetite for weeks and weeks of voting. That not your typical hardworking every day. And then you get somebody that runs for office who's independently wealthy, doesn't have to really work, got mommy and daddy's money or whatever the deal may be. And then he can go out, she can go out, and they can work the polls all day, every day, in every group or organization there is for 45 days of voting up until that point. And then you get the average blue collar worker who's got to go to work every day and he wants to run for office. And the only thing he does, if he's lucky, he got to go out, campaign at night, go home, help tuck his kids in, make sure everything's done so he can get himself in bed at some late hour in the night because he's campaigning and doing everything else he can do. And then he's back up early in the morning to go to work, or she's up to go to work and start all over again while the person sitting over there without a job, not working anywhere, is out there shaking hands, and they're actually getting the vote based on the opportunities that present to them than somebody who's actually running, who actually knows what the whole process feels like when you're not at the top of the pool, so to speak. You're at the top of the pack. You know, you're down in the pit fighting with the pit bulls while those folks are up top gambling on the winner, you know, and they're not gambling on you. You know, that's the way that goes. So yeah, it makes it tough all the way around. I don't know. It's really hard to see. It's so disappointing. And you know, it was disappointing when I ran. It's like I told many of the folks that run for office, you may not win the first time. You may not ever win at all. But when you lose gracefully, walk away, you're done. Live to fight another day.
Exactly.
Live to fight another day.
That's
but anyway,
perfect.
So it's the way it is. And I appreciate you being on the show tonight. I really do. It's been a great opportunity to really talk about what kind of went on. And as we know, North Carolina has soared to the top. Supreme Court's got the big red in it now. And, you know, people say, well, you used to never be like that. Well, I just defunding the police movement just soured me completely on everything and anything remotely affiliated with any party organization that didn't dissolve it, didn't walk away from it. And it's like I used to tell these folks that are running for office, if you want law enforcement to vote for you and you want us to get out there and campaign for you, then you have to show us and prove to us during all this stuff that was going on, what was your position? Where did you stand? And you tell us you stand in the right way. Now prove it. Show us something in writing. Show us something somewhere. Show us a clip or anything. So anyway, I appreciate you being here tonight, and we'll do this again.
I'd like to have you back on my show again.
Yeah, absolutely. Just let me know.
Appreciate it. And you all are great people on, so I appreciate you including me on this.
Absolutely.
And we'll have a good night, sir. I appreciate it. Yes, sir.
All righty. And I appreciate it. Thank you. All right, folks. As you saw right there, we had a great show tonight. I think it was. I think we went all over the place, and that's what these shows are designed for. We get out there and we do that kind of thing. It's our love for our country, our love for the people in it, and we can always, it's like I tell anybody else, we can have a difference of opinion, and we should always respect that. It does make it difficult when others become animated to the point that there's no conversation. I think sometimes if we get together, or all the time, if we get together and let's talk about the things that we can agree on, things that we know about, things that we learn about, things that would carry us on to the next time, the next day, the next story, or whatever goes on. That's what we have to do. Um, and I'm going to say something. I saw so many elections this last time, and some of those elections were really, they were going at it. But I saw some sheriff's races that I thought were just awful, accusing one of horrendous crimes, and which was no truth to it. And many times you get three parties into a run, and they're trying to split votes and see who can split the votes the best to get the one to walk into the back door. And when you have two parties that adamantly want to be in a position of a sheriff's office, they may be a stronger party, but together they're the strongest party. Separately, they were divided and they got conquered. Somebody can win and come in the back door with a lot less votes than the two others have together, which defeated the entire process, because too many times when that happens, you got candidates running on egos, not on experience and knowledge. And if you have a party that's running and they know they don't have a snowball's chance, and you know what, to win, because it's one that's never been done, and the other thing is they're not really a party because they don't have a leader of the party. You don't have anybody can take a lead in a party that really doesn't exist. And it's whatever third party that might be. If it's unaffiliated, unknown, whatever it is, the organizational set on that is that there's nobody running it from the top. Everybody is kind of commingled, and it's just out there, and it's ad hoc. But that happens many, many times because they tend to be the spoiler, and that'll happen. Now, there are a lot of unaffiliated voters that vote for different candidates, and that's okay too. You want to be an unaffiliated voter, but understand you don't have a party. So when you run for office and you get an unaffiliated person run, your success rate is very limited. And more power to you if you're just trying to send a message and you don't care about if somebody else gets in there that you don't like, or at the end of the day. But that happens. It happens all across the country, and it happens in every state. Unfortunately, when campaigns run like that, like I said, it's built on egos, and egos can destroy a whole lot. So leave your egos at home when it comes to getting out and spreading the message and doing the right thing, folks. We don't need politicians running around with the egos. What we need is politicians that can actually get out there and interchange and be a part of a process to come up with something that is a common good for all people, not just one person or one affiliation. And that's just what it happens. Now, sheriff's positions aren't designed, or should never be designed, to be party affiliated to a point where, who's going to do what better and who's not. That's what the vote comes out about. But the reality is, once they're elected, they owe it to the community to protect the community, not just one segment of a community. I was talking to a couple of sheriffs in particular, and I always like their stand is, doesn't matter if they're Democrat or Republican. They joined their North Carolina Sheriff's Association, which is a strong organization. And, they do a lot of things that need to be done. Then they get a lot of attention when they do it. And some of them are sheriffs, or those sheriffs are Democrats, some are Republicans. I don't know any of them that's unaffiliated or a libertarian or a Green Party or whatever the parties are out there. But when they get there and they do business, they look at each other as sheriffs, not as parties, because each party in each county runs a little bit different. But when they're there, they have to look about what's best for the common goals of law enforcement. that are going to keep communities safe. We're going to keep our people safe. How do we as sheriffs, or how do they as sheriffs do that together? Because safety has no political affiliation. I don't think any criminal ever jumps up and says, I'm going to rob that person over there because he's a Democrat or they're a Republican. That's just not what anybody looks at. They're going to do it because it's a victim of circumstance. That's just why they do it. It's coming. But the reality is when the battles are over, when the war is done and a sheriff has been elected, it's time to get behind the sheriff and help him and support him or her so you can move for the common good and the safety of the public for which they represent. And that's a fact, because you can't do it without the community. Now, you can sit back and you can watch, observe, you can judge, but you can also support law enforcement. Remember, everybody that's in uniform is not the sheriff. Everybody that's in uniform is not the chief. But everybody in uniforms, they're charged to certain duties and to accomplish certain things. And keeping you, the public, the safetyness of the community is their number one charge, their number one goal. So when you see these officers running around and you see them and you hear them, they've been trained to do what they do. And they can do what they do, or they wouldn't be in that position. Or the sheriff or the police chief wouldn't have them there. So folks, on this channel, we respect law enforcement wholeheartedly. We are 150% in the corner of law enforcement. We are red, white, and blue. We are mom, dad, America, apple pie, brother, sister, uncle, aunt. We are family. We believe in God. And we believe in doing things the right way. I believe in taking the high road. We talked about that a little bit earlier. We believe in taking that high road. But you're in a political battle. Unfortunately, you can't stay on the high road. You have to be on the actual road where the political battles fought. Yeah, I say that, and to say this is, you're not going to win by sitting on the bench and sitting it out, or just putting your name on a dotted line. If you're going to run for something, if you're going to be politically involved, then get involved and do it 100%. Because when the smoke clears and the battle's over, you want to be the last one standing. And that's the bottom line, folks. Protect yourself. Protect your family. Be real. Be safe. And always, always be ready. Because you never know when the wolf is at your door. And we'll be signing back on later this week for another show. And we look forward to it. Look forward to seeing you. Same, as they used to say, same bat time, same bat channel. Well, yeah, I always wanted to say that, so I did it anyway. What can I say? I might say that might be the child in me. But you know what? Everybody got to love a little Batman. So anyway, hope you have a great night, great week, great evening. Hope God's good to you. Hope life is good to you. And enjoy each and every day, because we're lucky to be a part of it. And everybody, wish you a good day, good night, and even a good morning if you're watching it now.